What's up? I figured I'd make this video. I got a couple questions about wiring from all different angles. So this is probably the easiest way to do this. So here we go. I'm going to start off by saying this is how I do it. You do it however you want. There's probably other people out there that would say to do it a different way, but this is how I do it. Usually I wire most of my bikes I build from scratch like this, and wiring's never an issue. Hundreds of thousands of miles later, I never really have a wiring problem. So first thing I'll address is, let's start with the brake light stuff. Somebody was asking about the brake light. You want to remove all your stuff off the bars. A couple guys asked about that. There was a whole thing. So banjo bolt, that's also a brake light switch, which is what I use for the back. They make them in any thread. So whatever you got going on, they got the bolt for you. Also, the way I wire stuff is, as far as the brake light, automotive style. So the bike's not on right now, but you got a brake light. Now, here's the rationale around that. You're ripping down the highway or road, this thing starts making a noise, you want to shut it off, okay? You shut it off, you're coasting down the road, it's dark, you still got a brake light. That's why cars are like that. All right, key's not on, still got a brake light. So that's why I do that. Really, unless you park this bike in a garage where shit's right on top of it and you got to worry about something leaning on this, your battery will never draw, it'll never drain. Or if you got kids and they climb all over the bike, maybe that. But besides that, that'll never have anything to do with it. You're on the side of the road, you and your boys pull over for a minute, you see a car coming, your bikes are off, you hit the fucking, yo, bro, we're here, don't fucking kill us. So that's why I do that. I don't run a front brake light switch just because I want to be able to slow down and people not know I'm slowing down. You know what I mean? The man's out there, and it's his job to catch us, and it's my job to not get caught. So that helps. When I blow by a trooper at 20, 30 over the speed limit, he don't realize I didn't shit on the brakes if he don't got me on radar. Okay? That's the brake light switch stuff. Like I said, you get that bolt with the wires, and you just run the wires down with your line, and you'll have a front brake light switch. This bike was from scratch, this frame, this wasn't a bike. Now, let's say you're doing a twin cam conversion. Somebody was asking about that, I think. Twin cam conversion. If you got a whole bike and you're gonna pull the drivetrain out of it, now you're installing a twin cam, everything stays the same except the ignition. This is what I use. Thunderheart. It couldn't be simpler. It's a single fire ignition. So you got 3 wires that go to your coil, front, rear, and center. I think these are them. 3 of these go to the coil. 2 of these go to power and ground, and the crank position sensor. That's it. 2 wires from the crank position sensor, power and ground, and the other 3 go to your coil. That's it. It's super self-explanatory. They come with a, matter of fact, this ignition unit comes with a CD. You can do all types of stuff through this dial and this port on here, but I never do. They are fine, like unless you're building some sort of crazy hot rod, they're fine. And if not, it tells you how to do all the stuff you would have to do. The only thing I don't like about running these is if you're out on the road and you fry this for some reason, I doubt anyone's going to have that in their fucking shop. You know what I mean? If you're watching this video and you run a shop and you have this unit in your shop, I'll buy you a beer. You're a good dude. But, I mean, I've worked at shops for 20 years. We never stock stuff like that. You know what I mean? That's the only thing. Now, if you're a real road dog, you know what? You just buy 2. You build the bike, a couple months later, buy another one. That's what I do with my personal bike. If you've seen it before, you know I run off the motor mount. I run 2 coils off the front where the regulator is. I run 2 regulators, and I leave the second wire just zip tied off. You're eventually going to need it, right? Might as well be on the bike. So as far as getting this drivetrain to run in a regular FXR, what you pulled the Evo drivetrain out of, this is all you need. That's it. I think they're like $300-400. Now this bike don't have no wires on the bars. You know, it's like a chopper as far as the way it's wired. And this is how I do it, with the brake light switch hot wired, which is super simple. One side of the brake light switch there goes to power, the other side goes to the brake light side of the light, and that's it. That's hot. It's powered, it's hot. Grounds, that's a thing with a rubber mounted bike. You know, you gotta ground, like if you know stock FXRs, you gotta ground the drivetrain to the chassis, and then the battery, you know, you need two grounds. One's for the drivetrain to the chassis so the charging system works, and then the other one's for the battery to the chassis. So with this setup, this was the tab for the oil tank. I just ran my two heavy grounds there. And one goes down to one of the starter bolts, and that grounds the drivetrain to the chassis, and then the other one goes to the battery here, and that grounds the battery to the chassis. And this is some of the wires coming from that unit on the panel side. And then I just went through this plate. This was like, this is part of that ramjet kit. It was already in this frame. So I just drilled a hole and ran that through. This is the brake light stuff. Regulator wire. There's really not much to it. There's nothing, like I said, nothing on the bars. So you got your one wire coming back from your regulator. That's there. You got your crank position sensor coming. That meets that harness coming from that box. The tail light is coming. One side goes to the key. And one side from the headlight goes to the key. So when I turn this, boom, one shot, headlight, tail light. And then this is an automotive style key. The second position works your starter. That's how that works on this bike. Now, you can put the button on the starter and push it in, you know, activate your starter like that. You just push that solenoid in. That goes right there with your hand to your foot. And you can run a regular, earlier style two-position key, where you could set it up to where this would just be your coil in case you want to run no lights, stealth mode, or you're having a battery issue. And then the second position would be lights and coil. So that's pretty much it. Somebody was also saying something about the early exhaust bracket. They weren't familiar with it. That's the early style exhaust bracket. So this takes this rubber isolator, which you see Chopper Guys makes the bracket that clamps to the frame and then goes down, and they want you to run that because that's the best setup. So I use that. You can buy this. If you have a frame, a later frame, you can buy this and weld it on now. There's a couple guys that make it. They also make one that comes all the way forward and bolts up by the pivot block. But you could get the weld on one like this, and that's the best way to go. Because now your exhaust is rubber mounted on the same type of isolator as the drivetrain. And that's it. There's really not much else to it. I mean, there's only, I don't know, 7 or 8 wires on this whole bike. So I hope that answers everybody's question, helps people in the future, and that's that.